All right, so it's week 11, which is fairly crazy. We have about 7, 8, 9, 10 days of class left before we start our final projects on the 30th. So just to kind of give some broad overview of what's coming up, there is tomorrow morning we're going to start class at 9:30, not at 9. And then on Wednesday we're going to start class at 10. On Wednesday night, we're going to have something called the Chicago Veteran Developers Hack Night, which I would recommend. It's not actually no, it's a requirement for all of you to go. It's going to be at 8th Light, which is only like a 2 or 3 blocks from here. There's going to be a bunch of people from the industry who are going to be there. So there's a person named like Ray Kruger, who's like a principal architect at. I'm gonna wait for that to pass.
My mentor is going to Cable.
Cable's gonna go. Yeah, there's always like there's a bunch of older veterans in technology who have just kind of like fought and clawed their way in to kind of like set the path for everybody else. There's another person named Jake Worth, who's a West Point grad, who's supposed to be there as well. He works at a company called Hash Rocket. So there's other developers who are there who are not Code Platoon. But most of the veteran developers inside of Chicago are all Code Platoon people. But there's like a small handful there outside. There's gonna be a lot of prospective students there, so they're gonna ask you questions as well. There's people from other boot camps who are also veterans who are gonna it's just kind of like a nice place to go hang out. But I'll be teaching about like more or less things that you already know, but I'll be talking about Amazon Web Services a lot more and something called Cloud9. So we'll be there from 5:30 to 7:30 on Wednesday. With that, we're going to start at 10 a.m. This week, other than that, is going to be fairly normal. Next week will be fairly normal, except for Wednesday, where we have yet another meetup. At 6 p.m., we're going to be going to a React meetup here in Chicago. On Friday morning, and we'll talk more about this next week, around 10 a.m., we're all going to go over to Pivotal, which is inside the Merchandise Mart on the 13th floor. And then we're going to work out of there that day, all of the next week, and then up until the following Monday. Then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday will be here, and then Friday we're going to be at Google all day for our demo day and our graduation. The week after that, you will be interviewing for Grainger. One of these days, either Tuesday or Thursday, probably Thursday, if you're going to apply for the Code Platoon Fellow program, we'll have interviews probably on this day. Let me just throw it in here before I forget.
When would we know who got the internship?
It's a great question. So the question was, when will you know who got the internship? I have, in the past 3 cohorts that we've done, you've known by Friday afternoon or Thursday morning.
So the
19th or the 20th, you'll know.
So we're not coming in like the 16th, 17th, or 18th?
One of these days, you're going to be, the 3 people who are participating in the internship program will go to Grainger. That's it. So you won't have class that day. Your last day of class will be the 13th. Unless you want to hold on to your key, that's the day that I also take keys from you and return you your money.
So we just have one.
You have one obligation this week. Yeah, one day, and then what will happen for the internship is you will rank everybody. Like you'll rank number 1, number 2 for Grainger and us. We will rank you number 1, number 2, and then we'll match make as best we can. I have known most of the time by, Wednesday or Thursday of the same week. No later than Friday or Saturday. The first one, because there were 5 companies and 11 students, it took a little bit longer. So I let everyone know on the 21st, like on the Saturday of that interview week. We never really know if it's going to take any longer, but for the past 3 cohorts, we've known within a day or 2. What I need people to think about, that I really need people to think about, is by this Friday, we'll say this Friday after our retro, we're going to have final project pitch day, meaning that if you have an idea for a final project, you're going to have up to 5 minutes to pitch as many ideas as you can. I'm going to write them all down, and then everyone participating is going to vote on them. Sound good? Keep in mind, this is something that you're going to be showing off to, your mentors, anybody who asks in the future. You're going to show it to Grainger when they ask you, like, what did you do for the final project? Like what role did you play on the final project? What did you learn on the final project? Things of that nature. So by Friday, let's say maybe 9:30, final project pitch ideas.
I won't be here that day.
Okay, well that throws a wrench in all my plans. Maybe the 22nd? 22nd? All right, we'll throw it this day. So by this Thursday, if you have an idea, even if you're not participating in the final project, so, you know, Leanna, if you have any good ideas, like we just need more ideas in general, just throw it, call them out and just, you know, just throw them out there. I will show you all the final projects from the previous cohorts. I'll find all the links and I'll just throw them in here just so you can see what people were doing, the description of their project, et cetera, et cetera. But just to kind of get your appetites whetted a little bit, this is what I might as well just show it to you. Final project. Oh, here we go. Capstone proposals. So this was Bravo Platoon. There's one called beer rating app. So let's say you're at a restaurant with your friends and you want to rate a beer. You're going to take a picture of the beer. Can't see this. You can see other ones. Modern animal adoption website, Cute or Not, Vote on Animals, like social media website for elderly people. This one actually won. It's called Festi Swapped, which was a geofence time-based marketplace. So if you're like at Coachella or something like that, and you're within the vicinity, there's like a market, like kind of like a Craigslist of like, this is what I'm selling, this is where I'm at, come find me, kind of thing. So you can post items, you can sell stuff, you can barter for it during a certain location, certain time. I really like this one, bathroom finder. So if you're ever like downtown, you're like, where is a bathroom? I really need to use a bathroom, but I don't want to use a gross bathroom. Like where are the publicly available bathrooms, and B, where are there clean bathrooms? And you're going to use Google Maps API to find non-residential buildings like, you know, the Daily Center or something like that, and see whether or not that building has a bathroom that's accessible. You could also do this to help out transgender folks who are like, I don't know where to go. Like in the city, that's a point of, you know, a lot of contention for those people. There's Friend Finder, charge your friend. Your friends are out somewhere and you cover them and then you never get paid back. I mean, this is basically Venmo now, but you're able to send them something via the app when you get home with like a picture of the receipt, so no one's arguing about like, I don't actually owe you $25. You know, stuff like that. Skill sharing was one of the ones that won. So the idea is like everyone's good at something. And this is like a non-money marketplace. I'm going to just ask you to teach me something for, you know, X number of points, and then you teach other people and you get X number of points, and then it's just like a place where you can exchange your skills for free. And then another funny one, dog poop shaming app. You take a picture of it, you take a picture of the owner, and then you shame them on the app. So this is just some ideas of ideas that you could have for this Friday.
There's no way that first one was take a picture of the beer and tell you about it.
It does. There's stuff that does that. Crazy. All right, let's jump into today's material for React.
When you say they won, that was just against other groups?
Yeah, it was just like they won in terms of like their idea was picked.
Oh, okay.
That's all.
But for us, it's only one pick.
What's that? Yeah, there's only one. Like you can pitch 10 ideas between everybody in class and only one of them is going to win. That's all. I realize this is so tiny for everybody. All right, so we have here the start of today's curriculum, and what we're going to be doing is this a larger project. We're going to build on it each and every single day, where we're going to rebuild a news site similar to NewYorkTimes.com, similar to like Reddit or something like that, we're going to build a news site, and there's up to 7 parts on it. It depends on how much you want to get into it. So we have up to 7 parts. Most people finish up to 5 because we have to move on to like other material by that point. But we're going to start with news site number 1, and each day will build on the previous day's material. So news site 2 requires news site 1, news site 3 requires news site 2, and so on and so forth. We're going to start off today with news site 1. By the end of today, it should look a little something like this. npm cd news site 1. Or no, whoops, cd news site. npm start. So by the end of today, it should look something gross like this. Now, you might be thinking, this is the ugliest thing I've seen in a long time, but don't worry, this is what we're going to start with, and then we're going to move on to nicer looking things. Now, the main purpose about news site 1 and the whole reason why we're going into this is we're going to be passing props from one component to another component. So you've been wondering, like, I have 2 components. How am I supposed to know what to pass from one to the other? How am I supposed to pass in entire event handlers from one class to another class, and so on and so forth? So you can kind of see today we have 1, 2, 3, looks like 3 different components that we're talking about. A nav bar component that just goes to the top, an article teaser, similar like if you go to like NewYorkTimes.com, there's a small little teaser article that you get to see just to kind of get your appetite whetted. So you're thinking about like, Trump takes aim at Mueller, and then they have like bullet points. Those are teasers before you actually click on this, and it loads the entire article for you. Then you have the article. So this is what's showing up. You have the date that it was written, who it was written by. Maybe there's a picture, maybe there's not a picture. By the end, it should look a little something like this. So let me jump into CD again, CD news site, full. That's not it. Let's see. Git branch. CD at 1. CD. Just jump to news site 5. News site 5. By the end, it'll look a little something like this. You can change the home page however you'd like, but it's got like a styled thing up here. It has a list of all the article teasers. Obviously, you can change the dates to not look so terrible. But the main thing that I'm trying to point out is the difference in speed between React and Rails. So if I click on the opinion, usually I have to click it. It'll send a request over to the server. The server will get some sort of response and put it back out to the screen. All I have to do is type this, and then it immediately loads up. So there's that sense of like, I click it and it's immediately there. Now it's actually not like, it's not actually making a request and getting a response back. It's actually already on the page. Like at this point, you've already made like a full request and gotten a full response from the server, and your browser, Google Chrome, is just holding on to all this stuff. Similarly, I can just type on world and it just jumps. Like you can kind of see, like it gives that idea that I'm moving instantaneously, but I'm actually not really moving instantaneously. So I'm here on the home page. You're actually going to create a search bar right here. Maybe you don't want to make it as ugly as mine, where it takes up the whole thing. But all I have to do is just start typing Fallujah or something like that, and then it starts narrowing down the number of requests that you do have. So if I were just to type in like French or something like that, every single title that starts with FRE or has FRE inside of it is just going to automatically, go back to like, it's just going to dumb down that number of things. I'm going to click it. It's going to take me to that particular article. Maybe you want to make yours 1 instead of 0. but you get the idea. It's like the sense of like the moment I click it, it has immediate feedback for me, and that's what people like to see on their applications these days. You can create a new article if you like. Submit it, successfully created your post. You go down to the main page, and it's all the way down at the bottom. So it's like the speed of React is just much faster than the speed of Rails. So this is where we're probably going to end up, more or less. You can fancy this up a little bit more. But we're going to start today with news site number 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just walk through news site 1 with you. Just go over every single component. We're going to do it all together. And then hopefully by the end, we'll have something that looks like that ugly thing that we saw at the very beginning. So we'll start here, and we're just going to clone this down. So we start off today by just running create React app inside of here. Actually, no, I think create React app is already here. Hold on, let me go back. My bad. RF news site 1, get cloned again. All right, open it up. I'll have my 3 screens, my 3 components of my IDE, my integrated development environment, my browser, my executor, and the code text editor itself. So when we take a look inside of here, it looks like we're missing node modules at this particular point. We have our README, we have our package.json, we have all of our components and our sources over here, but we don't have the node modules. And the reason is node modules are big. There's like so many files and so many lines of code inside of there that most of the time you don't want to push that up to GitHub because it takes so long to push up and so long to clone down. So as long as you have this stuff inside of package.json, like all these dependencies and things of that nature, as long as you have these here and you just run npm install, it'll read through all the dependencies and just install them on your computer. So I'm just going to run npm install to get started. I'll read over what we've got. For this particular challenge, the news site number 1, we're going to focus on creating 3 different components. And if you take a look inside of our source components folder, we have article teaser, and nav. So we have these 3 components that we're going to be working with. So I'm just going to open these up for now, knowing that I'm going to need them at some point in the future. I'm going to change all the highlighting so that they look pretty good. All right. And we'll just split it into 3 for now. All right. So all the components have been stubbed out like you've seen. And we need to create all the methods and things like that so that it renders properly and then you can pass the properties back and forth. Once this is finished, we run npm install. It's still going. It's installing everything that we need. And then we're just going to run npm start. To get started, we're going to start with just the article teaser. So the article teaser just is kind of like if you go to the NewYorkTimes.com, it's just those like small little snippets of text about a basic summary of what your entire app is about, so you can just read it real quickly. All right, it looks like we need a few things. We need an ID, a title, a created date, and a handle title click. According to the README, it's going to say all of these props will always be passed in. So you'll always have an ID, you'll always have a title, created date, and handle title click. What we want to do is we want to display the title inside of an A tag. And when the title is clicked, it should call the this.handle title click this props. And then we also need a created date in a p tag. It seems pretty simple. Let me change this. Oh, this is still going. You guys missed a wild weekend here in Chicago. It was the St. Patrick's Day parade. It took me, I usually go out of the city to try to avoid the giant crowds of people. But when I was coming back, it was like 6:30 or something like that. And it took me for like 30 or 40 minutes to drive like 2 miles because there were just so many people. So someone was going to ask a question about React probably.
Yeah. So you said when you load a React page or app, everything's loaded like ahead of time.
Everything that you mostly need is there ahead of time.
So including every sub menu of their articles and their images and.
For that one in particular, for our purposes, yes. But for most people, it's kind of like, let me load 80% of what somebody would normally click on. So all of that stuff is loaded all at one time. And if you need to do some sort of stuff on the fly, like you need to sign in or things of that nature, it's sending AJAX requests in the background, and you're getting, and it'll just give you the illusion that it's happening right away. So it's either loaded the entire time, or it's making AJAX requests in the background.
Okay.
All right, so let's run npm start. Let's see what we get. All right, so we got 3 components on the page, and let's take a look at where this is coming from. So we have 3 components that we're going to be working with today. Which file is the one that loads up all of them? App.js. So if I were to look inside of app.js, I expect to see the nav component, the article teaser, and the article itself. All right, let's take a look. So you said it's in app.js, which is under source app.js. All right, let's take a look. It's too small. So if we go line by line, we have line 1. We're bringing in the React component library from the React module found inside of node modules here. We're bringing in news from data news JSON. I don't know what that is. Let's take a look. So under source, there should probably be a data folder. Under data, there's something called news. And news, it looks like it's an array of objects. And these objects this is JSON. It's just saying like, okay, each article has an abstract, has a byline, created date. I don't know what desfacet is or geofacet. And there's some multimedia in there. It looks like this is just a list of all the articles I'm going to be rendering out to the page. Then I'm importing a bunch of different components that we're going to write. So we have nav, article teaser, and article. So it looks like those match up with the article teaser, and nav that we have inside of our components. And you'll notice that I can import it as whatever I would like. I can import it as poop. I can import it as nav or article teaser. But the main important thing to remember is look at the bottom of the article teaser, each one of these individual components. You create your class, and it extends from component, and then you have to export it on the bottom. So you create it like it's here, but in order for other classes to use it, you must explicitly say, I'm going to export this to other places. Similarly with the news.json, wait, no. I guess news.json, JSON doesn't need the export default. So these 3 components, you do need the export default here at the very bottom in order to use in other classes. Now we have a whole bunch of crap inside of here, and it's kind of scary, but it's actually not. So we start off with the constructor. It's the initialize from your Rails stuff. So it's gonna, if you receive properties, I'm gonna super the properties up, and then I have 2 constants. Random article index, which is math.floor, which is gonna round down. I'm choosing a random number times news.length. So basically I'm choosing just a random number between like the length of the array of news, and I'm flooring it. So it's just a random number. That's all it is. So I have that random number, and then from there I have a news with a random article. So this is an array that comes in, and I'm just choosing at index 2 or index 4 or something like that. This is just a random article. So line 11, random number. Line 12, random article based off the number. Then we have a huge bunch of state. We have nav items, which is this is the key, and then this giant thing here is the value. It looks like I just have a bunch of objects. Label is home, the value is home. Label is opinion, value is opinion. Okay. Then we also have an article. Remember on line 12 right here, we found a random article. So this .state of the app at this particular point has an article. So it looks like the ID is the random index that we were talking about. It has a title, which is the random index .title, random index random article abstract, and all this stuff. So this looks like we have all the things from the article that we need.
So can you go to the top again of your state?
Sure.
So you have your this .state is an object, and within your object you have key, and then the value is an array of objects.
Yep. So it sounds kind of ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So it's like Danny goes, all right, so let me get this straight. You have state, which is like a hash that an object. It's an object in JavaScript. It's a hash in Ruby. So you have an object inside of your React component called state, which lives on app. So you're saying I have an object with a key whose value is an array of objects, and the answer is yes. Sorry. That's just kind of how it goes sometimes. All right, so I have my constructor, which basically just supers the props, gets me a random article, and sets the state the way that I need it. Then here on the bottom, I have the render. The render is what comes out to the page. Again, you can do as many calculations as you need to do up here above the return. But once you get to the return, that's the HTML stuff that's coming out on the bottom. So I have a div and a closing div. I have an h1 for nav component. That's where this nav component comes in. And as of right now, I have nav, the nav component itself with the properties that are being passed in. As of right now, it doesn't do anything because we have not actually done anything with nav.js. This is just empty at this point. Similarly, then we have an article teaser. Then we're passing in all the props for article teaser. Again, it doesn't do anything because there's no code there yet. Similarly, again, we have article component, and right now it's what is this? What are these three dots? What's a spread operator?
Put your array into a larger array.
Put your array? No.
Spreads peanut butter on that toast.
Yes, it spreads the peanut butter.
You swat the fly.
You swat the spider all over the wall. There are evidently these like terrifying spiders where if you like crush it, like all the eggs will come out. Like mini spiders will come out. It's disgusting.
It's a real thing.
It's a real thing because it's like the spiders carry their eggs on their back. So if you step on a mother or something like that, all the tight, it's so gross. What's that?
I've seen that video.
You've seen that video? It's disgusting. But a spread operator, all it does is it takes all of the contents inside of this .state.article, and it's just going to pass it in here. So it's like if I have an array of like array A equals like 1, 2, 3, and I want B to equal the result of this would give me something like 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. So instead of typing out 1, 2, 3, I'm going to grab all the contents and just shove it in right here. All I'm doing is grabbing the contents of it, finding the .a or the whatever the name is, and just throwing it in its place.
Does it always refer to an array?
What's that?
It's an object.
It either refers to an array or an object.
So in that case, it's spreading ID through created date.
Exactly, yeah. So this .state.article, so this .state again is this global, not global, it's this hash that's available for this particular component. So this object has a key called article. Article has an ID, a title, an abstract, a byline, a created date, and an image. So what it's doing here is it's grabbing all of those keys and just spreading it into the article. So the equivalent of this would just literally be ID equals this dot article dot like ID or something like that, and then you continue passing it along. Then you'd have title to be this.
This dot state.
This dot state dot article dot title. So the idea here is like, I don't want to do the reason why we decide why instead of doing this all the way down, we have this. It just cuts down on the amount of stuff that you have to think about. So you want to do as little calculations in this render as possible. You can kind of view this as the V in the MVC model, the model view controller. The view does not do a lot of stuff. All of the big calculations should be happening somewhere else. Even if it's in the initialize, just somewhere else. You don't want to do like this dot state dot this dot state dot this dot state dot this. You know, like kind of like this. You might want to. You could probably do it somewhere else. I guess they're just kind of showing you there's two different ways of doing it. I think this looks a little bit cleaner, personally, than passing it all in. But if you want to be explicit, that's also okay.
So if you did a comma after that spread and then added this dot state dot the other key news side, whatever, it would pass in all those props of this dot state.
Think so? I'm not going to, but
yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, you know. I was just wondering.
Yeah. All right, so let's go back to the instructions real quick and see what we've got. So we've got these three components. We read through all the code inside of app.js. It looks like, all right, the article teaser should accept the following props: an ID, a title, a created date, and a handle title click. All right, let's take a look. If you take a look at this article teaser, it says it takes an ID, title, created date, and handle title click. It has all of these things already here. Let's take a look at what the values of each one of these are. So I'm passing in ID, title, created date, and handle title click into the article teaser itself. Right now it's empty. We'll figure out what to do with it. The ID is the value of it is this.state.article.id, this.state.article.title. So I'm just passing in, looks like just text things that are going, just strings that are going in. But then you take a look at handle title click, and we got this fat arrow function that's actually being passed in. So the value of handle title click says that I'm going to receive an article ID when somebody clicks on this. Then I just want to console log that ID out to the screen. We're going to make this do a little bit more later, but it says like I'm the page, like I am app.js, so I'm the main page. One of my components on the page is called article teaser. Based on what happens on the article teaser, that will impact the entire page. For right now, I'm just going to console log whatever the person decides to click on. So let's jump over to article teaser and read through what we've got. The article teaser component should, 1, display the title inside of an A tag. All right, let's do that real quick. So we have our return. So we can let's create an A tag. So href equals, let's just send them to Google for now. All right. So I have an href. So I have an href right here, and my goal is to just display the title inside of this A tag. So how do I access the title property?
Curly braces.
Curly braces? What are curly braces?
JavaScript.
So it's basically, you take a look inside of here, we have HTML. In order to execute the JavaScript code, you need the curly braces. So it looks like so keep going.
The title?
Title, yeah.
This.props.title.
So I have the ability to grab props because it's being passed in from one layer. The app.js is passing down properties into the article teaser. One of those things is called title. So I can do this.props, so all the properties being passed down, .title. Let's see if this does anything. Hey, there it is. So we have an article teaser component. It automatically reloaded, and I have something that just says a video, a wheelchair, a suitcase, whatever, and I can keep refreshing. It'll give me a new article every single time because of app.js. It's choosing every single time that I reload it. It's choosing a random number, and then from there getting a random article. You can kind of see right now that when I do this, it's going towards google.com because I just wanted it to go somewhere. Let's continue on. Number 2, it says, when the title is clicked, it should call this.props.handle title click this.props.id. All right, so it looks like when I click on this particular thing, I should fire off the event handler of this handle title click. So let me get rid of this href here. How do I, like, what is the event handler for clicking something? It's going to be on click. So when I click this, something is going to be fired off. So I want to actually execute. Well, it's right here. I'm just gonna get it for you.
Can you go to handle title click on your app.js?
Sure. Let's actually split the screen real quick for app.js here on the bottom. Need some
Remote from the bus?
Yeah. All right, so we have this handle title click here. So whenever this is fired off, it's going to take an article ID and then print that article ID out to our page.
But that function was just there. It wasn't created earlier on the page.
Repeat that one more time.
So on your app.js, that's not referring to a function in your render, or sorry, not in, yeah, like that function doesn't live on the page. It's just
so the function actually lives on app.js. It doesn't do anything fancy. It's just console logging whatever gets passed back.
So that's declaring the function right there.
Yep, that's it.
Oh,
this is the declaration of the function here.
Okay.
Right. So I have this.props.handle click. So whenever somebody clicks on this particular bit, it's going to fire off this.props.handle title click with this.props.id. So the concept of this now becomes important. Before we were really just dealing with one layer. Now we have two. Pretty soon we're going to have 3, 4, 5 layers going deep. So if you take a look inside of this, this.props.id refers to the article teaser has a property called ID. When I pass that up here, this becomes ambiguous. So I'm going to use fat arrow functions at this particular point. Let's see if this works. All right, so something is broken because there's nothing showing up. I think I still need this ahref equals nothing. Then on click is that. Right? So you can kind of see when I hover over it, it doesn't really take me anywhere. And if all goes well, I can click on this particular thing and it'll print out a number. All right, so it's doing something. You can kind of see like when I click it, it is actually executing. So I think we're okay, but I'm not actually convinced because when I click this, it's actually taking me somewhere else. I'm not a big fan of that. Can anyone find what I can do to make this a little, I guess, better?
Do a prevent default.
We do prevent default. What is something else I can do? 1 second, let me grab the answer. Maybe I'll just send them to nothing, like that. Let's see.
I think that sends you to the index.
What's that? As of right now, I think it's also sending me to the index because you can kind of see when I click this, it's taking me to, it was taking me to another place before. So as of right now, it's firing off it right when it starts. So my goal is when I click on this, it actually fires off, but it's not actually firing off. I think you do need a fat arrow function here. this works. Refresh the page. You can kind of see that that number does not automatically appear. But when I click this now, you can see that it's actually going to console log it all the way up. So I go from one layer, this article teaser from where I started, and it goes up one layer to this app.js. Any ideas of like why this is happening? Like why do I need a fat arrow function in order to get this to fire? And why was it not working before?
I have something to do with any of this.
Well, I'm actually not calling this in the app.js.
So it's because of the structure of your state, like it being having like like almost a JSON where you have to you have to point to a certain part of it.
Yeah, that's not it. So state is actually not being used in this handle title click at all.
Is it because there's implied binding in the fat arrow function?
You're on the right track. His answer was, is there an implied binding in sort of the fat arrow function? You're closer.
That's what I said.
What's that?
That's what I said.
You said this.
Yeah, binding of this.
Sure. Raymond, you had something?
Does it not know what layer it's in? Or?
Yeah, pretty much. So when you click, you need to fire off a function. And before, when you were just doing this stop props that handle title click, it's actually not a function. This is just like some sort of like value. It's what it's expecting here. So when you want to execute a function from one layer that'll fire off to the upper layer, you do need to throw this random. You need to throw the fat arrow function in so that it knows that when you click this, execute this particular bit of code. Otherwise, it's going to automatically execute, which is what was happening earlier. So when I go here and I refresh the page, it was already firing off and then now does not do anything afterwards. So it fires off once and then is no longer usable. By throwing the fat arrow function in the front, it's saying like on click, it's actually going to fire off it's actually going to do some sort of method. So when I refresh the page now, you can kind of see like it's no longer just firing off right off the beginning, and I can just click this as many times as I need to.
So you're saying that even though it's referring on the onClick, you have it referring to a function declared in your app.js, it's not seeing it as a function, it's seeing it as a value.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were doing an onClick on app.js and using handle title click, you wouldn't have to do that. But since it's a different component, you have to declare it as a fat arrow again?
Yes,
okay.
That. So long story short, let's go back to the way things were, right? So when onClick is basically what's happening is app.js is loading your article teaser. Immediately, because you are invoking it right over here, it's firing off this handle title click the first time, and then it will not run the subsequent times. If you want to run it every single time, you need to make this a function that will, when you click it, hits this, and then goes up one level, and then it'll execute.
But you don't need to set, but in the first time when you declared it, you have the article ID as a parameter. You don't need to put anything in the parameters for when you put it on your onClick.
My onClick is right here. So this .props handle title click takes in one argument. That ID number is this article ID here on app.js, and then it console logs out to the screen.
What are those first parentheses refer to? The arrow function after your onClick.
This one?
Yes.
So this is an anonymous function at this point. It doesn't need any arguments. It's basically saying when you click on this, I'm actually going to execute this block of code, this .props handle title click with this .props ID, and get passed up to here. All right, let's see what's next. So you're gonna see this a lot. Will arrow functions be useful here? This was kind of like the question I kept asking myself when I was going through this curriculum a year ago. The answer is always yes. Like always use fat arrow functions, and a lot of your woes and worries are going to go away. So we finished up number 1. We finished up number 2, and we're just going to get display the created date in a p tag. All right, that should be pretty simple. We're here inside of our div. We're going to just throw a p tag in its place. And Aaron, how do I interpolate JavaScript in React?
You want to put curly brackets there?
You got it. All right, and then how do I get the created date? So I'm just going to write created date, and then I want to get this created date that's passed down from app.js, and I want to render it out to the page here.
Yeah, I can't really see that, but I think it's gonna be state.
Okay.
Dot props.
Okay. State dot props.
Actually, this dot props.
Okay. This dot props. Good. And then I'll get this for you. Created date right over here. So state and props are two different things. Props live on the article teaser, like on each individual component, and you are in charge of them. Props are things that are passed down from one component into another. So in app.js calls and renders out article teaser to the page. It calls it with 4 different props. In order to access those props, you have a global hash on this article teaser component called this.props. It receives something called created date on line 70, and it's going to get rendered out to the page. If all goes well, I go back over here. Fantastic, nothing is coming out. Refresh, give me something on the page. So nothing's coming out here, so we'll see what's broken. It doesn't look like the console's showing me anything wrong. Okay. Let's see. Am I crazy? Did I forget something?
You use this dot state dot article dot created date.
Nope, because article teaser does not have a state called article. Let's console log. All right, let's take a look. So we passed in created date as a prop, so we're calling this correctly. The value of it is this.state.article.created date. All right, so let's go up to this.state, and
Different spelling.
there's a different spelling. Okay, so it looks like this.state has an article, and that article has a key called created_date, and I'm calling it down here as created date. So I think it's just change this small little typo, go back, and hopefully refresh, and there it is. So we have created date with this small thing over here. I do have these little Easter eggs for you guys to find. So it looks like I've done all 3 of those things. I've displayed the title. I've displayed I've done something so that it can handle the title click, and it displays the created date in a p tag. That's nice. Let's jump over to the article. So we finished this first part where we have just an article teaser component. Now we need the nav component and the article component. We're going to move down to the article before we jump into the nav component. So the article here says it should receive the following props: a title, a created date, an abstract byline, image, and let's take a look. The title, abstract, and created date props will always contain values. So it looks like these 3 are always going to be there. Image and byline may be there, but they also might not be there. So we need to account for that. Specifically, we want to display the title inside of an h1 tag. I like this one. This one's pretty simple. You jump over to article. First things first, we want to get an h1 with a title in it. So I'll get you started. Raymond, how do I finish this up?
Curly braces.
Okay.
This props title.
All right. Let's see. So inside of article here on app.js, this is the parent. I'm passing. You want me to change the color of the background? People see that? I can change it to light. Is that better?
We're at a rave, maybe.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter? Okay, we'll just go back to the way things were then. So if you take a look at app.js and you look at article, it doesn't look like I'm explicitly passing parameters down like I was for the article teaser. But what I'm doing instead is I'm grabbing all of the stuff that's inside of this.state.article and just throwing the contents of that into the article component. So the first thing it says is just throw out this.props.title inside of an h1 tag. So if I go here, you can kind of see there's that exiled former president of Maldives plans to seek office again. There's that title of the title of the article. All right, next I need to have the created date in a p tag. All right, so it looks like article passes down something called create_date. So inside of there, I'm going to do a p tag perhaps of this.state.createdDate. And close off that p tag.
State.
This.props thing. I'm so used to saying this.state. We go here, refreshing, we have the title, and then now we have the created date underneath it. And finally, we have the byline, if it exists in an h2 tag. So this is the difficult part here. If the byline exists, then we want to put it there. If it doesn't exist, we don't want to put it there. So how do I account for that? So I will give you a hint. There is a this.props byline, and it may or may not be there. Any idea of how to get this on the page?
We use big bytes double ampersand.
Okay. How do I do that?
Double ampersand after right there. So that exists, then executed.
How?
Same thing. This props, byline.
Maybe. Let's see if that works. All right, let's take a look. So we want to put that inside of an h2 tag. All right, no problem. Let's see if this page loads. By Peter Baker. There's that by Joanna Klein, So I think that works. Can you tell me about what this actually does? What is this double ampersand? Like, how does the logic behind this work?
So the right side of it is always going to be true, and it's only going to execute if the left side is also true.
Mm-hmm.
So need a double true statement in order to execute.
Yep. So this is a true and true statement. It's a logical operator. If you're on a date and you're happy, if you're on a date and you're happy, and your date is happy, you're going to have a happy date. If you're unhappy, or either of you are unhappy, it's not going to execute. So it's basically saying, if I evaluate this left side and I take a look at this.props.byline, if this is true, then execute the right side. And if this is also true, which is going to be by default true because of the first half, then this is what shows up on the screen. Again, Danny goes on a date with his girlfriend. Danny's happy, and his date is happy.
That's never happened.
What's that? Well, then you have other issues. So let's say for instance, Danny's happy. So this first thing is true, and then you look to the partner, and the partner is unhappy. Will this execute well? Like, will the date execute well? It won't, right? So at this point, you're going to get a false statement that comes out. This result is the last thing that's going to come out. If Danny is unhappy, then by default, we don't need to go any further. We know that the date is not going to end well. But if Danny is happy, then okay, the one side is good, and we look to the other side, and the other side is good, then that's what's going to show up on the page. Like everything is going to, all signs are good for that date. All right, so same thing here. If the image exists, we're going to put an image tag on there to the source attribute of the image tag. Okay, so I'm just going to grab this and shove it over here. Display the image if it exists in an image tag. The value of the image should be set to the image source. Okay, give me an idea of what's going on here. Like, how do I set that with the same kind of logic? How can I see if the image exists? because I need to put it in an image tag. So I'm not really sure what to do here.
You're gonna do the same thing, but just with you're gonna manipulate the attribute, the SRC attribute.
Sure, we can try that. We can change this. You're saying change this to an image. Image has a SRC. Okay. And something. Probably looks like a this.props.image and this.props.image. Are you saying that could potentially do it? An image tag. And the source of it is, if it exists, then it'll be the image itself. All right, so let's see if this shows something on the page.
Image is self-closing.
This image is self-closing. Still works. All right, so far this works pretty well. Looks like every single time it's showing something. All right, but let's keep an eye on this particular thing at this point. I think this is broken, but we'll see why in a second. And finally, it says display the abstract inside of a p tag. The abstract is always given to us, so that's a very simple one. Let's put a p right here. This.props.abstract. Come back over here. Let's take a look here. All right, everything looks good to me so far. But what happens when there is no image? Now I have this huge space in the middle. This is not what I want to see. So it's like, it's okay because like all the stuff is still there, but I'm obviously missing something right in the middle here. Like if it's, and the reason behind that is this image source is there no matter what. So if the image tag will be on the page no matter what, it'll just either have a source or no source. So I guess functionally it does the same thing. But there's always a little bit of space that you're putting in there because is looking for an image. It could be an image with something in there, or it could be an image with nothing in there, in which case nothing's rendered. But there's still that little HTML div on the page. So if I right click here.
That's the same with the H2, right?
That is the same thing with the H2. So if you take a look, there's an image tag on the screen. Like and you can see it, it's right there on the left side underneath the by Benoit Morane, whatever. But you can see it's still on here, even though there's nothing there. And my idea is I don't want to have this H2 or this image tag on the screen if neither of these things exist. Like it's just the HTML element should not exist. So I'm going to do some calculations really fast. And not calculation. I'm going to execute the code up here. So I'm going to do let byline with nothing and let image URL with also nothing. If this.props.byline, byline equals h2, this.props.byline. And similarly, if this particular thing is passed in from the parent, I'm going to create a byline variable, which at first it was equal to nothing, equal to this thing right here. Otherwise, I'm going to have an image URL with the same thing over here. And instead of just having it on the page no matter what happens, I'm going to have byline and image URL. If I refresh this page, let's find something without a picture. One of these has to not have a picture. Come on, give me something without a picture. Okay, this is getting annoying. All right, so the difference between what we had earlier, let me just show you what we had, is that with the old way of doing things, we always had an H2 on the page. We always had an image on the page. Even if there was blank or if there was nothing there, we would always have that HTML element there. By having our new way of doing things, we're saying we're going to have something called byline and image URL. At the very beginning, this let byline with nothing else means that I'm going to have let byline equal null, let image URL equal null. if there's a byline, then I'm going to set the byline equal to an H2 element. If there's an image, I'm going to create an image tag, and then I'm going to put it out to the screen. So if the image doesn't exist or the byline doesn't exist, I'm putting in nulls right here, which doesn't change the HTML of the page. Cool. All right. Last one. Danny was so excited to say Raymond sucks. All right. Last one here. We have the third component. So we have an article teaser, an article, and we're going to move on to the nav. The nav has a few props. Nav items and handled nav click. So the nav component should return a nav component that returns a lot of A's as children, one for each item in the this.props.nav items array. So if you took a look at app.js, you'll see under this.state there are a bunch of nav items. So this.state has nav items, which is an array of objects. And if we jump down to where nav component is actually called, I'm passing in this.state.nav items. And again, for the handle click, I'm just going to say whatever you click on, I'm going to console log that out to the screen. All right, so the nav component should map through this.props.nav items to create an array of A elements. And then each one of those elements looks like this. It's an object with a label and a value. And I just want to get the label to show up as the text that's going to be on the screen. So let me jump over to my nav. So again, app is my parent. It has state, which has a bunch of nav items. It's an array of objects. From this array of objects, I want to create a nav bar with many A tags inside of them. Each one of those A tags is going to iterate over each one of these objects. This label is going to show up on the screen, and the value is going to be what's passed when I click it. How do I even get started with this? So right now it's just return nav. There's nothing here.
So
What was the instruction?
So the instructions were, so I have a nav component. Right now it's empty. I want to display all of these words, this home, this opinion, the world, things like that. I want the capitalized version, to show up on the screen. And when I click on each individual link, it's going to console log the value, so the lowercase version.
So you want to do, you want to loop through, iterate through the label attributes of nav items.
Cool. All right.
Index.
That's definitely the right idea. So I have all these nav items. I know I need to loop through each one and put out label and then have value as the probably an on click or something like that. But I just don't know where to put it here inside of the render.
And that's a good question.
Between 4 and 5.
Between 4 and 5? All right. So we'll just do everything outside the return. I like that. That's a good idea. So how do let's take a look at map. Map JavaScript. All right. So it creates a new array with the results here. So if I have an array of 1, 4, 9, and 16, and I want to double each one, I will have a new variable, which is going to map over each one. Every single number is saved as x, and then I'm going to do x times 2. So when I console log, it's 2, 4, 8. Okay, that makes sense to me. Let's create myself, let's say let output equal this.props.nav items. I think that's what it's called. Let's take a look. I'm passing down nav items. Okay, so this.state.nav items dot map. It's in 2 arguments. I'll say the first one's called a nav item. And the next one is the index of which I'm working with. I'm going to make this into a fat arrow function. I'm going to return out a key equals index href equals, it goes to nothing for now. And then I need an on click. So again, I'm just creating a variable called output that's going to iterate over each one of these nav items and return to me one singular like link that comes out to the page. So when I click on this, I expect to console log the clicked item. So using the same logic that I used inside of this article teaser, I'm just going to grab this, throw it in its place. So when I click it, it's going to do this .props.handle. It's not handled title click. It's called handle nav click. And oops. And the value of that is going to be this dot. No, I think it's just nav item. Yeah, it's just nav item dot label or something like that. Or no, dot value. And what's going to show up on the screen is going to be nav item dot label. So since I've created this output over here, I think all I have to do is just do output. And let's see if this works. We have all of the things showing up here. They all go to the hashtag, which is to be expected. And on each individual one that I click, hopefully the words will come out. Home, opinion, world, national, politics, upshot, New York, and business. How do people feel about what I just did here? Very confusing? Very confusing? Raymond, can you explain what I just did here?
You loop through all the nav items in your apps state, and then you pass in two arguments, each nav item, and then their index.
Yep.
Then you returned anchor tag, which takes the attribute, key, which holds the index, href, which goes nowhere.
Yep.
And then the onClick, which leads to, which gets called an anonymous function, which when you click, it goes back to the app and then it console logs that a nav item.
Precisely. So again, you can't do all of these huge calculations inside of inside the return. The return is what comes out to the screen. Inside the render, outside of the return, you can do as many calculations as you'd like. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a variable called output. The output I'm going to call a little bit later. The output's just going to be a bunch of hrefs that come out on the page. So what the value of this is going to be, I'm going to, since I'm passing in properties from app.js, I'm doing this.props.navItems, this line 64 here on the bottom. NavItems is basically this .state.navItems, which is this giant list of objects that I have here. So we're good on that, right? Like all we're doing is we're just iterating over all of those nav items. Now this map is similar to like an each with index inside of Ruby. Each with index, you can iterate over each thing and assign it to, you have access to both the object itself and the index. So that's what we have here, nav item. So the first time through, it's just going to be this thing, and the index of that one is 0. Second time through, it's this whole object is going to be saved as nav item, and the index is going to be 1, and so on and so forth. So what I'm returning out to the screen is I created this href, the thing that's showing up on the page. Each one of these things, as the first time through it's saved as nav item, has something called label on there. So I could just do nav item dot label, and then home is going to show up in this JSX area right in the middle. When I do the on click here, it's the same thing, the same line of logic that it did in the article teaser. It's basically saying, I'm going to fire off an event. Like whenever I click on anything here, it's going to grab that particular nav item's value and shove it from the nav.js and pass it up to app.js right over here. So when I handle the click, I'm passing in some sort of string. That string is being saved as click item in app.js and console logging it out to the screen. That's why I'm able to, here I have my nav component all the way up top. I can click on national, politics, world a bunch of times, and it'll keep track of what I'm clicking on.
So why is the key necessary?
Watch what happens when I take away the key. So I can also do this without the index. Get rid of that. Get rid of this. But there's a warning that's going to show up on the page. It says each child in the array or the iterator should have a unique key property. It's just a rule. It'll still run. Like I could still national, politics, upshot, New York business. Like it still runs, but it's just best practice if you're going to iterate over a large group of things to also keep track of which number you're iterating over. So you need to pass in the index. Map gives you index for free. You just do key equals index. It's just a requirement. Otherwise, this thing is unhappy and it's here. So this is one way of doing it. Throw everything inside the render and just have fun with that. Or this is another way of doing things. Let me copy another one. So again, number one, throw everything in the render, and that's totally okay. It's like doing everything inside the controller in one giant action, just because you're just trying to get your feet on the ground. Another way of doing it is this. So what I chose to do here is I have a nav bar, same component, and I'm passed in some properties. Right away, I'm going to create a nav bar attribute to this class, which is going to run this.create navbar.bind this. Over here, I'm calling this.create navbar. This.create navbar is actually not a method, but it comes over here and it actually just executes this create navbar method at this particular point. Create navbar is a custom method, so I should probably have an underscore in the front of here, but I don't. And it calls this. So when I bind this to it, I make sure that I have the same context of this particular component. And all I've done here is I've just moved all of my output inside of this create navbar. This is just two ways of skinning the same cat. Again, I have a create navbar. The value of this .create navbar is calling this particular navbar thing. I could also just do this.create navbar .bind this, and it'll also work. I don't need this line right here. See if that runs. What's the difference? Oh, it's because I need to actually call it down here on 22. Okay. So again, two different ways of doing the same thing. This is a more syntactically correct way of doing it. So I'll put it side by side. And this is what we had. This is fewer lines of code, but all the stuff is happening inside of render. This is more lines of code, but it's more syntactically correct.
So always strive to keep less in the render and more. Create your own custom functions.
Exactly. The render is the view of the MVC. You want to do as little calculations in the view as possible. Cool. All right, I'm going to stop recording here and listen for any questions.